Hi, Lafayette third graders. Today we're going to be learning how to tell time to the quarter hour and the half hour. So yesterday you watched some videos and learned how to tell time to the hour. So we're going to review that just a little bit before we go ahead and get started with our new lesson for today. All right, so here is your first clock. Give you just a second to look at that. All right, this clock is showing 2 o'clock. The hour hand, which is the smaller hand, is pointing exactly at the 2, and the minute hand is exactly at the 12. And we know that if the minute hand is exactly to the 12, it is o'clock. So this clock is 2 o'clock. All right, I have a few more for you, so let's go ahead and look at those. All right, what about this clock here? All right, you should have said 1 o'clock. So again, the minute hand is right to the 12, so that means it's o'clock. And the hour hand is exactly to the 1, so this is 1 o'clock. All right, I have one more for you. All right. All right, you should have said 3 o'clock. So the minute hand is exactly at the 12 like the other two, and the hour hand is at the 3. So you can write this as like a digital time with 3 and then the colon, which is the 2 dots, and then 2 zeros. Or you can actually write out 3, the letter O, an apostrophe, and clock. And we'll talk more about that in another lesson in a few days. All right, so again, today we're going to be learning how to tell time to the nearest half hour and the nearest quarter hour. So I found this really cool image that really helps you understand better with the quarters, and I actually thought it was really, really neat. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this. So you can see that it says the top of the hour and it has o'clock, like with the zeros that we were just talking about. And then when you see the first quarter here, the first quarter over here, it actually has a quarter. And I know that before we left, y'all were learning about fractions. So when you go 1/4 of your clock, your minute hand would be at the 3. Okay, so when we're talking about to the quarter hour and half hour, we're really just looking at the minute hand. And the hour hand will always tell us the hour, but for the half hour and quarter hour, we're looking at the minute hand. So after your first quarter, your minute hand would be at the 3. And so if you take a whole clock, which is worth 60 minutes, and you look just at the first quarter, you will notice that it is representing 15 minutes. Okay, so now if we go 2 quarters, 1, 2, you will see that it is half of your clock, and half of 60 minutes is 30 minutes, which you see here. And again, we'll talk a little bit about these words that you see here in just a second. All right, so now if we go 3 quarters, 1, 2, 3, your minute hand is at the 9, which represents 45 minutes. So this is 15 minutes, this is another 15, and this is another 15, which gives you 45. And then if we have 4 quarters, we know that that's a whole dollar. We can also notice on the clock that that is also a whole hour, and brings us back to the top of the hour, which is o'clock. Again, we're focusing on the quarter hours and the half hours today. All right, I'm going to show you a clock, and we're going to talk about how to tell time on this clock and what it would look like if we actually wrote it out. All right, so here is your clock. All right, we're going to notice that the hour hand is between the 1 and the 2. All right, and you're also going to see that the minute hand is exactly at the 6. Now, if we remember from this paper here, if it's exactly at the 6, that is half of our clock. That represents the 30, or half past. So looking at this clock, we notice that the minute hand is at the 6. So it is going to be representing 30 minutes. Now, how do we decide if it is 1:30 or 2:30? Because it is kind of between both of them, and it can be kind of tricky. All right, so Miss Brown was the one who actually mentioned this to the rest of the third grade teachers, that you always hook back. So if we took a hook and we drew it, it would hook around the 1. So this clock is showing 1:30. It has not yet been 2 o'clock. If it was 2 o'clock, our minute hand would have to go all the way around and be at the 12, and then our hour would be at the 2. I think I did that backwards. It's kind of, the camera's backwards. So again, if the minute hand was around at the 12, then it would be at the 2, but it is not yet there, so this clock shows 1:30. All right, so we can write that in a few different ways. So the first way would be looking at the clock just like this, 1:30, and this is an analog clock. An analog clock has the hands and the numbers on it. Now, if we wrote 1:30 like a digital time, it would look like this. 1:30, you have the number 1, the colon, and then 30. So the first number is the hour, and the next numbers are the minutes. So this is 1:30. And I also talked about we can actually write it out using words. So it would look like this. 1:30. Okay, so we actually have 1:30 written. I'm going to show you that quarter picture again. So there's one more way that we can write 1:30. So if I'm at 1:30, I am 1/4, 2/4 to my clock. So my minute hand is at the 6, remember? We have that here. Notice what that says right there. It says half past. Half past. So we're going to go ahead and write that down. Half past. But half past what? Well, if it's 1:30, it is half past 1. So that's another way you can write it. So it could look just, well, look this. You have 1:30 written in a digital time, 1:30 written out in words, or you could also say half past 1. And we're going to practice some more. All right. Your next clock will look like this. All right. So again, your minute hand is at the 6, which means it is 30. So looking at the hour hand, what time is this clock showing? Okay. It is showing 2:30. So again, your minute hand is at the 6, which we know represents 30 minutes. And then your hour hand is going to hook back to that 2 because it has not yet passed our 3 to be 3:30. All right? While I write down the 3 different ways that you can write this, I want you to think about at least 2 ways that you can say or write 2:30. So while I'm writing those 3 ways, I want you to think about 2 ways and then check your work based off of what I show you in just a second. All right, you ready to check? All right, so here are the 3 different ways. You have 2:30 written in a digital time. You have 2:30 written out in words. And then this one is probably the most new to you all, and it is half past 2. So again, like the other one, the 30 is half, so it's half past 2. All right. Now I have a few more clocks to show you, and that's also going to talk about now our quarter hour. So we were just talking about the half hour, which we know is 30 minutes, and it's always going to be 30. But this next one can be a little bit tricky because it could be 2 different things. So when I look at my little quarter paper again, you see the word quarter here, and you see it here. So when the minute hand is at the 3, you can say quarter. But also when the minute hand is at 9, you can say quarter. But there is a difference. If it's at the 3, it is quarter past. Only 1/4 or 1/4 of the clock has been passed. But if it's at the 9, you go 1, 2, 3 quarters around to your clock. So that only leaves you with 1 last quarter to go. So when your minute hand's at the 9, you can say quarter till. So again, the minute hand's at the 3, it is quarter past. And if your minute hand's at the 9, it's quarter till. And we're going to do some practice with that right now because I know that can be a little bit confusing with both of them being quarters. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this clock here. Wait, that is the wrong clock. Literally, let me look at this clock right here. All right, so the hour hand is between the 12 and the 1, but we know it hooks back, and so it is at the 12. It is representing the hour of 12. Now, our minute hand is at the 3, and we know if we count by 5s, 5, 10, 15, the 3 represents 15 minutes. So if we wrote it in a digital time, it would look like this, 12:15. And just like before, we can actually write out 12:15. And this is what that would look like, 12:15. All right. Now remember, from our quarter paper that we just had, when it's at the 3, it is quarter past. Quarter past or quarter after. As long as it's past, it's after, that is your minute hand at the 3. So we can say quarter past, and what was that hour again that it's at? 12. So we can say quarter past 12. Okay, because remember, a quarter on a clock represents 15, and it's 15 minutes past 12. So that's how we get quarter past 12. And again, you can also say quarter after 12. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to look at a few more. All right, so we have this clock now. So your hour hand is between the 3 and the 4, and your minute hand is exactly at 9. Now, when our minute hand's exactly at 9, that represents 45 minutes, because if we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So I'm going to go ahead and start a digital time with 45. Okay, so now let's think. Is it 3:45 or is it 4:45? Well, if we hook back, it is 3:45. It has not yet passed the 4. It's not yet been 4 o'clock. So this clock is showing 3:45. So in a digital time, this is what it would look like, 3:45. And again, if we wrote it out, we could write 3:45. So 3:45. All right, and we're gonna go back to that quarter paper we were looking at. All right, so when we have, it's at the 9, so we have 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters. Remember, it says quarter till, because we only have 1 quarter left. It'd be a lot easier just to talk about that one last quarter than all 3 we've already passed. So we could also say quarter till. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. Is it quarter till 3 or quarter till 4? What's the next hour that you're going to see with that clock? It'll be 4. So this is where this one gets a little bit different, but it is quarter till 4. So this is how you can also write that, quarter till 4. Okay, we're going to do one last practice clock before you go ahead and try this on your own. And I'm going to show you the clock, and just like we did before with the half hours, I'm going to give you time to think of 2 different ways that you can write this time, while I write all 3 ways that you can write this time. Here's the right clock. All right. So while you look at that and think of 2 different ways to say this time, I will be writing out the different ways for this time. All right, so minute hand's at the 9. That is quarter till. because we've already gone 3 quarters around, and it's a lot easier to do that one last quarter than all 3. So it's 1/4 till. So if we look at the digital time, you should have gotten 12:45. And if we would have written that out with words, we would have written out 12:45. But if we wrote 1/4 till, it'd be 1/4 till 1. Because if I add a 1/4 to this 45 right here, it'll bring me to 1 o'clock. So that's why we have 1/4 till 1. All right. So you are going to go ahead and practice on your own using Reteaching 17-1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of this right here, and I'm going to add it into your assignment so that you can go back to it. But also on your paper with Reteaching-1, there is some examples right here at the top, also with different ways to tell their time. Okay, so it's going step by step. We're going slow. So you are going to work on 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now you can either take a picture of this and write it out, and then take a picture and upload it into Google Classroom. Or there is a Google Doc with 1, 2, 3, and 4 where you can type in your answers if you choose. All right, so I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I cannot wait to see you for our next video.